The Breakdown. This is the 2013 PSP West Coast edition. I'm Matty Marshall alongside Todd Martinez, and I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about the games coming up this weekend here at this event. There's a lot at stake, Todd, because if you are in the Challengers division and you are able to earn your way and fight and make it to the Champions division, then you will be playing for that World Cup victory. And then also on the flip side of that, if you're in the Champions division and you don't have the tournament that you wanted to have, then disaster could strike and you will be forced to go down into the Challengers division for World Cup. Not the thing that any of these teams want to happen to them.
No, I mean, this is the tournament where everything, the most is at stake, your opportunity to win World Cup. If you come out here and have a bad showing, end up in the Challengers division, you're going to spend all the rest of the offseason sitting, waiting, and wondering what could have happened at World Cup and why didn't we prepare more for the West Coast Open?
So, before we get into some of the spotlighted games, I mean, honestly, with the way that these divisions are these days, I really feel that every game has the possibility to be a barn burner. But, you know, there are some teams that have played really, really well this season. Dynasty, 2 wins on the year so far. Houston Heat won Chicago the last event, so they should come into this one smashing. And Dynasty's going to want to look to get back and, you know, prove to the world, hey, we rebuilt our team and we're here to win every single, or have a possibility to win every tournament that we enter. So obviously the 2 favorites coming into this event are San Diego Dynasty and Houston Heat. Who else do you feel is a favorite in this event?
Well, I always like Infamous. You know, I got to say Vicious first. You know,
well,
because
I was going to say,
I got high expectations here.
I was going to say, you know, Todd, the coach of Vicious.
But other than us, you know, Infamous, they've been out here for a week practicing. Moscow Red Legion, you know, just came right back up from the Challengers division. They've been out here for 2 weeks grinding. Damage, we actually just got back from Florida. We practiced Damage, and man, they put a whooping on us for a couple days. So, I mean, this is anybody's tournament right here, and this is definitely the one that the teams that haven't won a tournament yet this year, like Damage, Infamous, you know, teams with
Ironman,
championship
X-Factor
expectations. Those teams are really grinding hard for this event, and the biggest factor still is that nobody wants to go to the Challengers division for World Cup.
Which is interesting because in years past, before the Champs and Challengers division made its appearance this season, the 4th event was basically a tune-up for World Cup. I mean, yeah, it's a tournament, you want to win that event, but historically it was probably the least prestigious out of all the 5 events in a year to win. But now it has this overriding, just overarching, just humongous importance of this event that, you know, I mean, you're going to hear us talk and pump that up, but it's true, man. I mean, you know, we've all been there before. The last thing that you want to do is is have a bad weekend and then kind of submarine your entire year. Now, yes, of course, you can go down and have a chance to win the Challengers Division World Cup, you know, because we get a winner out of that division every event. But, you know, of course, the 20 pro teams, man, you want to be playing in that Champions Division. That's the whole reason that you took the professional challenge and sacrificed a lot in your life in order to have this awesome, crazy paintball adventure. And that World Cup win is just, I mean, it's what everybody plays for.
And another thing is,
it starts here. It starts right now.
Yeah, and another thing is, like we saw last year, Houston Heat, by winning MAO, which was the 4th event last year, I thought that really gave them momentum going into World Cup. So by winning that against Infamous, you know, I coached Infamous last year, you know, that was tough for us, but it seemed like really big for them. And then they went into World Cup on fire, played really well, and ended up winning World Cup. So not only, you know, you got to fear for the worst, but you also got to think, if you can come out here, have a good showing, really play hard, you can get some good momentum going into World Cup.
Well, let's just quickly talk about let's talk about Infamous, because I think that Infamous definitely is one of the dark horses at this event. They haven't performed this year as well as they did last year. That could be a number of things. I really feel Damian Ryan is just completely on fire this season, looking outstanding. And on Friday, they're going to be playing in the afternoon, 3:45 West Coast time. They take on Top Gun Union. And then they also are going to play Damage for, you know, their first 2 games of the tournament. How do you feel they match up against those 2 teams?
I think it's going to be a rough one for Top Gun. You know, I think that both these brackets, I think these are the 2 toughest brackets that we've seen all year. But, I mean, the second game was against
Damage.
I mean, this field is an awesome field for Damage. And I'll tell you right now, just from watching them play, I think that their players are so versatile. They're such good like anticipators of the game as it unfolds. They're really good at reading situations. I mean, Infamous, they shoot really well on the break. They got the same sort of players as well. So I think that's going to be an awesome game to watch. But this is the type of field that, the teams that are really experienced, really quick at reacting, are really going to have good tournaments. And the finals at this event is going to be crazy.
Yeah, I agree too. In this field, there are a lot of options out there. There's the center is very playable. The Dorito side's very strong, but it's going to be hard for teams to get out on the snake side to that far corner bunker. But if you do make it out there and you got a good guy in front of you, that's going to win or lose a lot of the points out there. And then how many players, whose shots are going to be on off the break? You're going to see a lot of kills come off the break here on this particular field layout. But then, like you just said, the teams that have that, like Damage, that have the chameleon-like ability to shift gears when they need to, depending on the situation that presents itself, based on how many guys they shoot or get shot off the break. And then I think this is all going to be a counterpunch field too. Crazy things are going to happen, and those guys that have that high paintball IQ that can be able to see that situation and then react accordingly and appropriately for what's in front of them are going to win the day.
Yeah, I mean, guys like Nicky, Bobby Aviles, Damian Ryan, those guys are experts at shooting on the break, reading the situation, and then making those moves. But you look at Damage, you got Daniel Holiday, Chad Bougere, and Brian Smith. Those dudes were everywhere last weekend. They'd see the opening and attack it right away. And those guys are so quick from bunker to bunker that you don't have time to react.
And Holiday not having the greatest year as far as his standards are concerned. He's kind of down there in the rankings. He was the third-ranked player in the world last season. And, that could be a number of things. But he's one of those guys, you got to get Holiday spin. So experienced, and talk about a versatile player. I mean, he's one of those guys that he can play the one on the Dorito side. He can play the one on the Snake side. He can play the two, the support role. He has a versatility that is very rare, and he could break out at any time. I think this could be a really good field for him. And, Damage is also going to play X Factor at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. What do you think about X Factor? That's another one of those teams that they started a resurgence last year. They ended up taking third at the World Cup last season, and this year they've avoided getting relegated a couple times. They've got a lot of penalties, haven't been able to stay out the penalty box, and they've had a few changes in the roster. They do have obviously it's X Factor. There's a lot of upside to that team as they have great players like Archie Montemayor, Colt Roberts. I really like how Dimitri Ninos is playing out there in his rookie season. I mean, he's definitely one of the runners for Rookie of the Year for this year for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm just concerned about X Factor's consistency. It's been tough for them once they get on a roll to keep their momentum going because of all the penalties they've got.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that they recently released Zach Wake, who was one of the guys who got a lot of those penalties. But there's other guys on that team that have gotten penalties too. So if X Factor can stay out of the penalty box, we know that they've got good players. We know that they can play together, and we've seen them with some pretty hot, fast starts. And this is the type of field where if you get off to a hot start, you're going to have to keep fighting. You're going to have to use your momentum to keep scoring points because you're not going to be able to lock this field up and win a 3-2 game. This is an all-attack field, and that's the way X Factor plays.
Yeah, well, and also with the guy, okay, look at the Snake side of the field. Snake side of the field is going to be a little tactical. I mean, you're going to have to definitely play aggressive over here. But if you get your guys in position, but you're going to have to be able to read those situations. Guys like Archie Montemayor for X Factor, I think he's a guy I'd want over here on the Snake side with this particular layout. I think he could have a big tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like both sides of this field it's going to be harder to get out on the Snake side for sure. But I feel like both sides of these fields, if you shoot a guy and see him walk off, then it's all about reading that situation and attacking hard right away. So, I mean, Archie's one of the best in the league at seeing situations because he has so much experience, so many big games. And, I mean, yeah, he's definitely one of those dudes. You put him on either side of this layout, and he's going to do damage.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so Damage definitely could win this one. X Factor, definitely outside shot. Infamous, I think they got a decent chance. If they can get all their guys playing on the same page and stay out of the box, too, they always have problems with penalties as well. Let's talk about the Ironmen real quick. The Ironmen have pretty much, they have the core of the team the same since, not from last year. I mean, it's pretty much a completely new team almost from last season. But they've had some roster madness, but they still have Alex Goldman. They still have Marcelo Margot, the #1 ranked player in the world right now. However, Marcelo is going to be playing with a broken hand out there.
Yeah, and that's tough. Marcelo, one of the reasons why he's so good is because he's so skilled with his left and his right hand. But Marcelo, he's all fighter. He's going to come out here, broken hand or not, and he's going to play his best. We'll see how he adjusts. I really think that this tournament, for the Ironmen is going to play a lot into Alex Goldman. I went out there, talked to Mike Hinman for a little bit a couple weeks ago, went out and hung out with them at their practice, and they're playing against San Jose Royalty, who I expect to see good things from because they had a pretty good practice those couple days. But I mean, for the Ironmen, Alex Goldman really needs to step up. I thought he played well in that practice, but what they got a new pickup playing first over here on the snake side, Brandon Cornell for them, but Alex Goldman was the one that was playing the inside role. He was getting kills on the break. He was coming behind, filling, talking, doing everything, getting in the snake and really killing people. Danny Park was getting in the snake.
Well, yeah, I was going to say Danny Park, because they do have a couple new guys. They got Nate Schrader, and then they also have Brandon Cornell. Brandon Cornell is a very young guy. I think he's 16 years old. So, and he's untested at this level. Now, yes, he grew up in San Diego, and he's been playing against big-name players and big-name teams since he first cut his chops in the game. So he does have that experience playing. But, it's once you step out on this field, man, the cameras are on, everybody's watching, and you realize the importance of what's happening. It takes a unique rookie to be able to just block all that stuff out, focus on what he needs to do. Let's hope, for the Ironman's sake, that both Brandon Cornell, though Schrader is a lot more experience than Cornell does.
I like Schrader. I've actually been watching him for a while because, my old ties with Tyler Michaud. He's been talking about Nate Schrader for a while, really believes in his talent, and he said that, Nate Schrader wants nothing more than to be an excellent pro in this league. So the determination is there from everything I've heard. He had a great couple practices, and he's a good kid. So, I hope that he does do well. But, that's a good pickup for them, and, maybe he can fill the void that was left by the release of Justin Schwartz and Corey Bornstein quitting the team and going to Impact.
Yeah, so that is going to be pretty interesting to see how that shakes up. Now, the Ironmen, they are going to be playing against Red Legion at 11:15 Friday, and then their next game is against Dynasty. So they have a pretty, honestly, every bracket's going to be tough because you have the 10 bus teams at any given time up there in the Champions Division. But you got to play Red Legion, who fought their way, smashed everyone essentially except for Royalty on their way up to winning the Challengers Division and then moving back into Champions here for the West Coast Open. And then they're going to play Dynasty, and that's one of those, anytime that Dynasty and Ironman are playing each other, they're playing for a secret trophy, and that's the best team from California. So it's always going to be a grudge match. The team has had quite the ancestral relationship over the years with players going back and forth. So, Dynasty Ironman, that's just one of those teams or one of those games you always want to watch. But if the Ironmen come out and don't win against Red Legion, they're going to be put in survival mode right away because, with 4 games in the prelims, you need to really go 3-1 to have a really good chance to put yourself on to be playing to try to get the win at the tournament. If you go 2-2, you're really rolling the dice. Completely depends on your point spread and how everyone else did. And if you go 1-3, then you're essentially going to be playing in the relegation game and having to fight for your life and have the chance to play, honor playing in the Champions Division for the World Cup. So, there's definitely a lot on the Ironman's plate, but it's a big test for their team right now. Big test.
All I've heard since the schedule and the brackets came out, is you guys got the tough bracket. You got the tough bracket. Both of these brackets are tough brackets, okay? And you know what? When you have a bracket with so many good teams, everybody has to play each other.
Yeah.
There's no guarantees in the Dynasty Russian game, the Ironman Dynasty game, the Heat Russian game, Vicious Ironman game. There's no guarantees, and that's why we come out here and play these games because this is a great field. The weather should be nice and warm. Everybody should be out here busting their butts to try and be the best. And this is what you want. You want to play against the best. If you're going to win, you're going to have to beat the best. So I welcome it, and I know all these other teams do too. That's why they've been out here for 2 weeks practicing almost every day during the week to win this tournament.
Yeah, there's been a lot of teams at the top level, the bigger, highly funded teams that have really put a lot of effort into this one. We're talking about like Impact's been, I want to talk about Impact for a little bit, but Impact's played Heat, I think they're playing X Factor. They've played like 3 big teams so far just to get ready for this tournament in the past 2 weeks. And the Russians, same thing. They've been out here grinding. Like, there's been 3-4 teams out here that aren't from Southern California that came out here that have just been grinding. And Impact had a little bit of some time to spend some time with them. I think that's another one of those teams that they keep losing in the semifinals. They play awesome in the prelims. They smoke teams down. Then they get to that semifinal game, and they're just not quite winning that game to move on to the finals. But another thing, though, is they've got a couple injuries. Joshua Metz out. Chad George, sorry, not Chad George, but Justin Cornell. He is going to play. His knee is slightly injured a little bit. Justin Rabikoff tweaked his ankle a little bit. So not major crazy injuries that's going to keep guys off the field. Well, Wilmet's was definitely bad. He dislocated his shoulder pretty bad, so Wilmet will not be playing. But they have a pretty deep roster full of talent.
Yeah, that's why they went out and got the guys that they got. They still have a Greg Sewers, a Ryan Moorhead.
Lots of weapons.
They got a Dave Baines floating around there somewhere. So
and Dave hasn't really had a lot of playing time this season because we haven't had a lot of dominant back bunkers, and Dave's such a storied career for him. And even though he hasn't got a ton of playing time, he's still one of the highest ranked players in the world because of the work that he does do when he gets out and the points that he gets to play. Nick Sloviak's another good example of that for Heat too. Yeah. Nick Sloviak could get more playing time in this particular field because there are a few more back bunkers. Again, it's not like it's chock full and there's a giant awesome back center to play out of, but there's those little better starting spots for those guys that can filter out. Now that's up to the coaches. I don't know, let me ask you, are you going to play another good back player that hasn't got a lot of playing time is Hooker for Vicious.
Yeah.
Is he going to get a little more playing time at this one?
Yeah, we ran a lot of plays with sending Hooker to the snake, to try to get him off the break, just to get him more involved.
Just rumbling, stumbling, tumbling.
But no, I love Chris Hooker. He shoots people on the break. He communicates. I told him if he lost 100 pounds, he'd probably be the best player in the league. That's how much I believe in Chris Hooker. But, we'll see. If the one spot, two spots on this field that he can play, he's got to be productive out of it. Mm-hmm. And if you can't be productive and make moves and do your job, then you're not going to play. And every coach needs to approach it that way. I know Jason Trojan approaches it that way. Then that's the reason why he has had so much success. The best guys on the field that do the jobs the best, those are the guys that are going to play. So, you want to get everybody involved, but, it all kind of depends on how the field's playing out, who's playing well, and, all the normal stuff.
Yeah, well, and also for Heat, let's talk about Heat for a little bit. Heat came into the last event, Chicago Open, with kind of a big question mark, and we didn't really know who was going to play the one on the snake side for Houston Heat. Now, it ended up kind of being a no-brainer when you really truly thought about it, because they do have Konstantin Fedorov on their team, who just was outstanding, Finals MVP. But he cut his teeth. He was the guy. He was like one of the main front snake players for years when he first became paintball famous. And so it was kind of a no-brainer when we really started thinking about it. But they didn't have Chad George. They didn't have Dizon. They're going to have Dizon and Chad George back to play on this snake side, which kind of now Jason Trojan has a lot more weapons on this side of the field. And also it's going to be 100 degrees out here, so he's also going to have more fresh legs out there. And I really felt that Dizon, before he got injured, he was looking outstanding. He was his rookie year last season. And we were like, oh, who's this Dizon kid? And, we'd heard about it. We'd heard him play a little bit in the divisional ranks coming up before. But he had a pretty solid season last year as Heat was dominating. They had 3 wins last season. But this season, I really felt that he was starting to be a huge contributor for their team. His numbers were great, and then he got hurt. So how is he going to come back for that injury in this so important tournament? And then Chad George is, when we pulled all the coaches from last season, Chad George was the name that kept coming up as far as who would you want to pick if you had 5 guys to pick on the schoolyard, who are you going to pick to have play that one on the snake side of the field? Chad George's name came up a lot. And when you get guys like Sloviak and Woodley coming off the bench playing as well as they can, Monville finally stepped up last event. He had kind of a rough first 2 events, but played great last season. So, Houston Heat, man, they could come back here and win 2 in a row.
Yeah, they got weapons all around. It's really going to be interesting to see what happens over there. But you got to have wheels to get out to the snake side. It's really going to be interesting how, once the paintballs start flying, how the game unfolds. Talking to Joey Blute down there, we were in Florida practicing damage, and he's like, you know what? You just really got to prepare for that first game. Because after the first couple games, everybody's going to see what everybody's doing and have to make adjustments. And then once you get out there in the field and you really see what is and what isn't makeable, everybody's going to start making their adjustments. And that's true to a point. Because some fields, it's really tough if those guys are getting shot on the break to try and force it through those gaps and get out there alive. But there's so many different things that I think we're going to see this event more than usual as far as stunt plays, and people coming through the middle, and loading up sides. Like, I feel like the lanes on this field are so big that you can take the risk to leave certain guys open, to try and overpower a side right off the bat, or to try and make moves and counter moves that play off of it. The timing on this field is going to be so crucial, to how people play it late in the tournament. And I think this is going to be one of the best tournaments to watch for everybody at home. So definitely tune in all weekend because it's going to go down.
Yeah, I can't wait. There's just a lot of storylines out there. Like, how is Margot going to play through his broken hand? He's the #1 player right now, and he lost the Top Gun title last year because he got played out of position, I feel, at World Cup. And so there's I mean, just on the Ironman alone, you have like 5 different awesome storylines that we just are going to find out. How are the rookies going to play? I mean, is Brandon Cornell going to be able to step up and play the snake like an official starting one? Is he even going to get the start? How's Alex Goldman going to do? And then you have heat. Okay, well, Chad George and Dizon coming back. Are they going to be getting who's getting the start over here in the one on the snake side? Such a crucial thing over here. And coming back from injury, how are they going to play on those? Because ankle injuries and foot injuries are kind of tough. You got to hobble around for a while. You lose some of the strength, and so they're fresh back off those injuries. Is Impact going to? I mean, on this particular layout, how is their style there? Because they play aggressive. Impact's one of the more aggressive teams in the league, I feel. So I can't wait to see how they come out and play this field. And then Dynasty, I mean, man, Dynasty's, when you look across, Rusty Glaze, coach of Dynasty, has played his players. He's utilized more of his roster than any other coach out there. And, of course, Dynasty had such an amazing beginning start to the year with the 2 wins that they came out. There's just tons of storylines. And let's switch to the challengers real quick. Texas Storm. Texas Storm loading up on talent to come out here and try to earn their way into the Champions Division. They picked up the Odell brothers, Dusty and Devin Odell, who were longtime fixtures on San Antonio X Factor, but they really actually started with Storm before they went and spent years on X Factor, but then they left the game for a little bit. Dusty actually came back and played with X Factor at World Cup last year, and Devin has played on and off with Dynasty the past couple seasons. But then they also got Justin Swartz. So I think Texas Storm is going to have a really good chance to earn their way out of the Challengers Division.
Yeah, I think this is a great field for Justin Schwartz. I really kind of wanted to pick him up too for this event. But it's just bad timing. Middle of the season things are always hard on players and teams. But I mean, I think this is going to be a great field for Justin Schwartz, especially in the Challengers Division with Texas Storm and the Odell brothers coming in, giving him some support. It's going to be interesting to see how the Odell brothers play. We know what they're capable of, but I want to see how they come out and perform. And we practiced Texas Storm before Chicago, and I thought that they had a pretty strong team. I thought they were going to do a little bit better in Chicago than they did. So I can't wait to see how they play. San Jose Royalty.
Yeah, that was going to be the next name that I brought up, because Royalty was the only team in Chicago that gave any sort of trouble to Moscow Red Legion. And not only did they give them trouble, but they had a really good chance of winning that game. They had a few mental mistakes that their players made, where if they had actually done what they were supposed to do in those situations, and a couple of them were like a gun issue here and there. There's a couple things, but these little tiny mistakes kept them from beating Moscow Red Legion. That was a really close match. And if they had beat Moscow, Moscow would still be in the Challengers Division, and Royalty would have been bumping up. And they're that close.
Yeah.
So I think that. What did you see? I mean, you saw them out there.
I mean, they gave the Ironmen a run for their money last weekend in practice. I mean, I watched them at the tournament. We actually played them in MAO when we were in the Challengers Division, and I mean, it was a good game. I mean, they got small, fast, intelligent players that are getting better by the day. They had Shane Pestana, who's playing and leading the team, and there's no really better guy that you can learn from as far as motivation and as far as experience and developing talent. So I mean, having him in your corner is huge, but they got a lot of young, hungry, fast kids that have really good paintball bodies, that can get places. They're all versatile, so I can't wait to see how they play. And, if they play anything like they did against the Ironmen in practice the other weekend, then it's going to be rough for the other teams in the Challengers Division.
Yeah, they have 3 Vidalich brothers. There's 3 brothers on the same team, and they're all really good. Then they also have Chris Catt, who used to play for the Ironmen, and they have Toe Camel, who used to play for the Ironmen. So they have this rare combination of really hungry talent who want to grind and spend the time that it takes to get better. And then they also have a legendary coach. I mean, you really couldn't ask for more than Shane Pestana as the person trying to lead the team and take you to the next level. And that's also a really cool story too, that Shane, who has been playing professional paintball, I mean, obviously he took a big break, almost a 10-year break, but
yeah.
But that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really good story too, because Shane Pestana, when I was coming up, and he was the guy that was my hero, and then we got to play together as he was the coach and captain. I was playing on the Ironman. But man, that's a really special occasion for the guys on Royalty to be able to have Shane help, because that's the guy you want to fight for. He's the type of guy that you really want to put the extra time and put the extra effort in, because he believes in you so much. It's like, well, if Shane believes in me, I got to believe in myself.
Yeah, for Shane to find the hunger and the fire again to want to actually strap a pack on and grab a gun and go out there again. You know, it's kind of crazy because, I mean, he took a 10-year hiatus from playing, but he still came back and won 2 championships as a coach in 07 and 08 with the Ironmen. So you know that he's motivated. He still loves the game. You know, I think that, having him actually on there playing and being with the team and being involved in the team like that, I mean, it's so invaluable. Those guys are so lucky to be able to have him there. So I really expect a lot from Royalty, and I think they're only going to get better.
Yeah, but let's talk about Excessive real quick, because Royalty's actually playing Excessive second game of Friday's competition, 9 o'clock, and that could be a crazy one too. I mean, what do you think about Excessive?
Well, I've been hearing a lot of good things from Excessive practices. I know they practiced the Russians last week or the week before and had a pretty good practice against them. I still believe in guys like Telford and Thomas. You know, Thomas, if you haven't seen him lately, he's cut weight. You know, take some of the pressure off of that knee injury he had. He's faster. He helped Infamous win the last Millennium tournament. So, I believe in those guys. Ben Bowie is really fast. Really small, fast guy. I expect him to be utilized on this field a lot to get up that Dorito side. They got good guys. Riley hadn't had any problems getting places. It's just about getting the kills once he gets there.
Totally.
We'll see if Aaron Tholey can step up because we didn't see much from him last event. So I believe Excessive has the talent and, the drive just by having Rich Telford there to push these guys to want to win, but they got to want to win. They got to work together.
Yeah, and they also got that kid Jaime Lopez. He's a baller too. Yeah, and I was talking to Rich, and I was like, who's playing really well for you guys? And he kind of went down pretty much said exactly the same thing you did. But then he also was like, I think Jaime could be really good.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Jaime and the high expectations for him, but it's up to him to come out here and prove it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But that's why it's fun to watch these guys actually get that chance. You have these younger guys trying to mix in with these established pro teams, and when you're in that situation where you're looking down on the end of the field and it's Dynasty or it's the Ironman, it's these guys you've been seeing in videos and reading about for years, and now you're on the same field with them, or you might be on the same team with those guys. What's going to happen there? How are they going to respond to that moment? But that's the cool thing. I mean, that's the cool thing about the paintball adventure when you're playing these tournaments, regardless of the level. And that's the cool thing about the PSP. You can come in at D4 and slowly work your way up like a lot of teams have. Vicious, Top Gun, 187. What do you think about 187?
I don't know. I mean, their first event down in the Challengers division, they played good all the way up until the finals, and then I thought we did a good job of beating them. Yeah. But they came back in Chicago and really just did not play well at all. And they got beat. They got relegated again. So they're going to be here in the Challengers division. We're going to see if they come with the same hunger that they did the first time they were in the Challengers division, because it's not a good thing, but the fact that they're in the Challengers division now gives them the best opportunity to win their way to play in the Champions division for World Cup. I think that nobody wants to be down there, but to have an opportunity to beat the lower 10 teams that are in the Challengers division and get a shot to play is good for them, but they have to come with the same hunger that they did at MAO. And for them to do well at World Cup, I think they need to come here and win the Challengers division.
I think so too. It's one of those teams that we watched them come out with this like really intense fire in their rookie season last year, and we started learning some of those names of the better players, the guys that were really, I felt, could be stars in this league. I felt Nick Laval had a beastly rookie season. I mean, everyone was like, oh my God, who's this Nick Laval kid? We haven't seen as much out of him this season. I know they spent some time in the Challengers League, but he's got more in the tank. I think Eddie Painter is developing into a really solid back player who can launch at any moment and go take guys down. He's made highlight reels before. And and then you got a situation where Dan Zaleski, I feel, has actually had a better year this year than he did last season. But Max Traylor hasn't. But they're still there. I mean, the talent still exists. And then they picked up Matthew Jarula. So Jarula's on the team now, and he's a good player too. But they have had a lot of turnover with a lot of the guys that, those like supporting guys, those supporting members. I thought Brian Jenkel was balling it up in the beginning of the season, but he's gone too. So yeah, we don't know. I really don't know how 187 is going to do. Talking to their owner, Mr. Painter was like, he's basically saying that we've proved that we're not good enough yet to consistently be in the top 10, but that we're obviously better than most of the teams down in the Challengers division, and I would agree with him on that.
Yeah, but when they get their opportunities to play in the Champions League, they need to play as hard as they do as when they're in the Challengers division. Take it just as serious and want it more. Prepare more if possible. But I mean, I still think that they do have talent, and I think that they're capable.
They're fun to watch play.
Their team, fun to watch play.
Yeah, I really like watching 187
Got
play.
to put it together.
Yeah. And they were exciting to watch because they were so fearless. I want to see that heart, that hunger again. I know it's there, and I know they're trying to get a little bit smarter with their game plans, but still, it's those kids can drop the hammer when they need to. What do you think about Chicago Aftershock? Legendary team, stuck down in the Challengers League all year long. They're starting to make some moves though, like they got Carl Markowski on the team.
Yeah, I think that they did a good job of getting a little bit more experience with Carl Markowski and Nick Matthews. And I think that it showed last event because they played a lot better. But that team, it was a new team last year. They took their lumpings. They lost a ton of games. But I feel like when you got some young guys like that, a lot of times when you don't have a high level of experience across the board, then everybody's going to make mistakes because 5 guys have to go out and play. This isn't a one-on-one sport. So if one of your 5 guys goes out, makes a rookie mistake, it gets 5 other guys killed. Or 4 other guys killed. Everybody needs to be on the same page when they're out there working together, and that just comes from playing top-level competition together for a long time.
Yeah.
So now that those guys have had some more events under their belt and they're playing in the Challengers division, I think that's been really good for them to pick up some experience and to gain experience by playing in the Challengers division. And I think that they're only going to get better. And Aftershock is a team that I've played for in the past, won a title with. I love the name. I love the city where they're from. The way that
legendary team.
Exactly. The way that team believes. So I only hope for the best for Aftershock.
Yeah, and they're always fun to watch. It's craziness over there. They definitely are not scared to push forward, and they have. I really think that Carl is probably the fastest guy I've ever seen play the game before.
Yeah. And
he's back now. So, and they're going to be playing at 1:30 p.m. Western time here. And man, I'm looking forward to that. So we got ourselves a hell of a tournament here, man.
Yeah, can't wait.
Yeah,
can't wait.
It's going to be a good one. What are you going to be saying to the boys in this one? You got some special speeches lined up?
You better come record this one because it's going to be good.
Yeah.
And let me know ahead of time this time.
Yeah, right?
Or don't.
No, man, we're just going to sneak over.
We'll see.
We'll just have to put the parental advisory up, though, before we actually get over there for that.
Yeah, probably.
Are the Vicious guys getting stoked? Are they getting riled up? Because I know they're a pretty methodical comp team. They're not like a hype, like Aftershock hype team. Russians call methodical. The Dynasty's kind of a mix of the two. It just depends.
It's crazy because you know how I get. I get pretty fired up.
No, I don't know. How do you get?
I look around and I just want to jump up and down out of my seat, and go crazy. But these guys, they're the same way. If they do get excited, they don't let it show. They keep it really focused. They keep it really quiet. There's not a guy on the team that's really up in people's faces. That's one of the original guys. We just picked up Keith DeVitt last event, and he's probably the most excitable guy on the team. But that's cool because I can get pumped up with him, and all the other guys can stay focused, and do their thing and harness their zen and, focus on the game. But they get pumped up. I've seen them get pumped up, but they just don't really show it outwardly. So, I mean, I told them, I've been telling them all week, you guys need to come focused and hungry and really, really, really want it. It's all about the power of will at this event, because if you don't want it more than anybody else, somebody's going to come here and take it, because this is that type of field where you can step out, smack somebody in the face, and then just keep giving it to them and giving it to them.
I'm also looking forward to seeing how Munoz, the rookie, is going to play for your team at this one.
Ooh.
I like how that kid plays, man.
This is
exciting to watch.
Munoz.
Yeah, so it's going to be good. How many guys did you guys bring?
10. We actually released John Glanville from the roster from the past few events, and Phil Kank was actually able to work out his schedule to be back with the team. He actually never missed a practice. He just couldn't make those events. So Phil Kank now is able to be out here.
That's huge for you guys.
So I got Phil Kank on the judo side. So I got basically 10 strong guys now.
Yeah.
I got 10 as to where the first couple events we were playing with, 6, 7 deep, without our big guys in the back center. But now we got 10 strong guys that are versatile, that can play almost anywhere except for maybe hooker. You're not going to see him breaking out to the snake or anything, but I really like our roster. I really like having Phil back because he's a really intelligent player, and he's fast, and he's small, and he's got experience. And he was one of the higher ranked players in the league as well.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have.
It's huge to get him back for you guys. That's huge.
Yeah, but the guy that I want to see really step up here is going to be Zach Sherman. I want to see Zach Sherman step up, be the leader of the team that he was when this team was dominating divisional events, and I want to see him come out here and play really well.
Well, he statted pretty well at Chicago.
Yeah.
He had some really big games for you guys.
I think he's got more than that in him, too.
I agree. Before we sign off, what do you think about the Tauntauns?
Well, I heard that the Tauntauns only brought 6 players out here.
Yeah.
In the first few events of the year, they were only playing with 5. But that wasn't in Riverside, and it wasn't 95 degrees. So I agree with the best 5 play, but they are playing in the Challengers division, not to take anything away from the teams down there. But it's going to be tough to play with 6 guys if it gets really hot out here and people can't go point to point. We saw the Tauntauns do it a lot those first couple events, and they had their most success with it. Last event when they tried to sub in and out more guys, granted they did get a ton of penalties, which hurt them significantly, but having those same 5 consistent guys has been the best bet for them this year. I just don't know how well it's going to play out in this heat.
Yeah, I don't know either. But they're pretty used to that. They're pretty used to running with that skeleton crew, and I don't know if they're going to be used to doing that with it being 100 degrees out.
I think there's going to be a lot of 7-5 games, 6-7 games. I don't think it's going to be 4-2 games.
Yeah.
5-3 games. I think it's going to be a lot of 7-6, 7-5 games.
Yeah.
So they're going to be playing a lot of points.
Well, and first game, right before we sign off, man. What do you think? Favorite game of the day? First day. What do you think?
Dynasty Vicious. I'm ready for it. I am ready for it. That Heat Red Legion one right before that our game is going to be awesome to start the event off with. But for me, Dynasty, after them winning 2 events, they took second at the last one. I thought that we started off really slow. I made a couple coaching mistakes when we played them in Chicago, and I'm just really pumped to play those guys. I think it should be a fun match.
I think Dynasty Ironman at 12:45 is going to be pretty awesome. And then I also think that Damage Infamous for the last game of the day is going to be pretty great. Now on Saturday, who do you think for Saturday? Besides the Vicious games, because they're all going to be awesome.
Well, the second game of the day, the Heat Ironman game.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I think could be a crazy one depending on what happens the first day, but Dynasty Red Legion is one of the ones that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, Dynasty Red Legion, that's going to be crazy. I also want to see Damage play Impact for the last game of the day.
Yes.
I think that one's going to be great. And then I'm looking forward to see what the Challengers teams are going to be bringing. We got CP and Aftershock at 1:30 on Saturday, and Texas Storm is going to be playing at 12:45. So we're going to see how the Odell brothers and the new pickup Justin Swartz are going to mesh with the core of that already pretty solid team anyway. So I think Texas Storm, man, I think they got a shot. We might see them in the Champions League come World Cup. All right, so thank you guys for tuning in to the Breakdown here at the 2013 PSP West Coast Open Edition. Matty Marshall with Todd Martinez, and let everyone know that we got the webcast this weekend, man. Ball access. See you guys in just a little bit.